107.7 FM News.
The time is 12 o'clock. Now the news in detail. Kicking off from the health sector, where nurses under the umbrella of the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives Federal Health Institution sector have insisted that their planned 7-day warning strike begins today. Some of the demands of the nurses are the upward review of shift allowance, uniform allowance adjustments, a separate salary structure for nurses, increased core duty allowance, mass employment for nurses, and the establishment of nursing department in the Federal Ministry of Health, among others. The members vowed to complete the strike even if the government called for negotiation. Speaking in an interview earlier, the national chairman of NANNM-FHI, Murakin Yorilwan, said the government had 15 days to respond to their demands but failed to act. The union on July 14, 2025 issued a 15-day ultimatum to the federal government demanding immediate intervention to prevent a total healthcare shutdown. The Minister of Solid Minerals, Dele Alake, has declared that the federal government will not bow to blackmail or media attacks in its efforts to curb illegal mining and insecurity in the sector. Speaking at a recent forum, Alake said the biggest challenges confronting the mining industry are not administrative but external, driven by individuals benefiting from illegal operations. Alake added that those opposed to the government's reforms have resorted to smear campaigns and blackmail against the newly launched mine marshals who are recording significant progress. He said some operators have tried their best to discredit the mine marshals by accusing them of bribery, but none has provided any evidence. Outside Nigeria, Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara has announced he would seek a fourth term leading the West African nation as tension rises over the exclusion of many heavyweight opposition candidates. Earlier, Ouattara has been officially nominated by his ruling rally of Alphocetes for Democracy and Peace Party as its candidate, but had not yet said if it would contest the October 25 election. Ouattara said that he had received numerous calls from fellow citizens concerning his possible candidacy in the upcoming presidential election, noting that any decision he would make would be guided strictly by what it is best for his country. Ouattara won the third term in 2020 after the constitution was changed to reset the presidential term limit. Turning to the other parts of East Africa, where at least 6 people have been killed in clashes between long-standing allies South Sudan and Uganda near their shared border, where competing claims over the poorly defined boundary often flare into small-scale fighting. Earlier, Sudanese officials said elements from the two armies exchanged fire in South Sudan's Kajokeji County, killing 5 South Sudanese soldiers. Ugandan Army spokesperson Felix Kulaigye said SSPDF soldiers have strayed into Uganda's West Nile region and refused to leave, leading to firefights in which at least one of Ugandan soldiers died. Uganda has backed forces loyal to South Sudanese President Salva Kiir for several decades, helping the country fight for independence, which has won in 2011 and during the subsequent civil war. You're listening to Global Box on Adamimogo 107.7 FM, transmitting live from Olojudo's Palace, Ido-Ekiti. Still to come, controversy mounts over Trump's support for the Israelis' management of Gaza aid.
Iṣẹ́ àmì àti iṣẹ́ ìyanu ní Jesus City. Ọlọ́run Olúwa ló ti ń dábìrà. Iṣẹ́ ìyanu tí Jésù ṣèlérí fún wòlíì Sámúẹ́lì Ọlọ́bàbá Adamimogo láti ṣe ní Jesus City lọ́dún yìí. Nínú ìrìn àjò àwẹ̀ àtàdúrà ọlọ́dọọdún yẹn. Sure mercy of David. Àánú tó dájú ti Dáfídì ọ̀sẹ̀ yìí ló bẹ̀rẹ̀. Lọ́jọ́ Friday 1st di Sunday 3rd August. Pẹ̀lú àánú Jésù Olúwa wá fẹ́ gba gbogbo èèyàn lọ́wọ́ alágídí ogun. Ègún ìdílé tí ò jádùn àwọn gbà. Lọ́jọ́ Friday 1st, Saturday 2nd àti Sunday 3rd August. Lábẹ́ ìfàmì òròyìn ọ̀pọ̀rọ̀ sí ọlọ́run alààyè. Àwọn olórin ẹ̀mí kábírí ó bọ̀. Peter Ògúndókú, Prophet Sámúẹ́lì Ọlọ́bàbá Adamimogo yóò máa sọ̀rọ̀ àṣẹ lórúkọ Jésù. Bàbá aláàánú Jésù fúnra rẹ̀ ó máa ṣàṣẹ pé. Bẹ́ẹ̀ làǹfààní one-on-one counseling máa wà láti rí wòlíì wòlíì. Tí àdúrà yóò sì máa lọ ní gbogbo wákàtí lórí social media nù. Ti Prophet Sam Olúwalọ. Ìwọ náà máa dà kẹ́mọ́lé Friday, Saturday àti Sunday ọ̀sẹ̀. CAC Grace of Mercy Prayer Mountain. Adamimogo Jesus City tó wà ní Ìlàmìjà Village. Lẹ́kì Expressway ló yẹ kó wà. Lọ́sẹ̀ àkọ́kọ́ yìí. Ìrere ò ní dàkúnlé o.
Glad to know you're still there. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel via Adamimogo 107.7 FM. For happenings around you or news inquiry, please call our newsroom on this number 0915 786 8095. Now to the rest of the bulletin. United States President Donald Trump has suggested that Israel will run food distribution centers in Gaza, a move that critics say would further entrench the Israeli occupation and endanger the safety of aid seekers. Trump added that he trusted Israel to handle the distribution of U.S. aid in spite of chaotic operations that have resulted in Israeli troops firing on hungry Palestinians. Trump, who has largely blamed Hamas for the delay in distributing aid to civilians in Gaza, acknowledged Israel as a lot of responsibility for limiting aid to the region, but again called for Hamas to release the hostages still held in Gaza to ease negotiation.
And we're prepared to help. We want to help. It's a terrible situation. The whole thing is terrible. It's been bad for many years, but it's great to hear you feel the same way that I do. We have to help on a humanitarian basis before we do anything. We have to get the kids fed. So we've been sending in a lot of food. A lot of the food that's been going there has been sent by the United States. And so we have a good group of countries that are going to help with the humanitarian needs, which is food, sanitation, and some other things. It's very difficult to deal with Hamas. As I said, we got a tremendous amount of hostages out, but it would take place in drips and drabs.
Meanwhile, Israel has tightened its blockade in Gaza since May, allowing food into the territory almost exclusively through GHF, which has 4 sites set up in the south of the enclave. The British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said the United Kingdom will recognize a Palestinian state in September unless Israel takes more steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, including agreeing to a ceasefire. Keir Starmer stated that the United Kingdom has consistently maintained its intention to acknowledge a Palestinian state as part of a genuine peace effort, noting that such recognition would take place at a moment when it could make the greatest difference to the two-state solution, which he described as currently being at risk.
We will recognise a Palestinian state as a contribution to a proper peace process at the moment of maximum impact for the two-state solution. With that solution now under threat, this is the moment to act. So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the state of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September, unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, agree to a ceasefire, and commit to a long-term sustainable peace.
Earlier, Foreign Secretary David Lammy said he hopes the UK's move to recognize a Palestinian state in September will affect the situation on the ground and lead to a ceasefire in Gaza. Reacting, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu criticized the United Kingdom's decision, stating that it's rewarded what he called Hamas' brutal acts and that appeasing jihadist extremists is a strategy that consistently fails. New York police have said the gunman who killed 4 people inside a Manhattan office tower blamed his mental health problems on the National Football League and intended to target its headquarters but took the wrong elevator. Investigators said Shane Tamura, a Las Vegas casino security worker who was carrying a handwritten note in his wallet that he claimed he had a chronic traumatic encephalopathy known as CTE, accused the league of hiding the dangers of brain injuries linked to contact sports. New York Mayor Eric Adams said the NYPD is sending 2 teams to Las Vegas to execute a search warrant and investigate the weapons recovered so far.
We're sending 2 teams to Las Vegas, one to execute a search warrant and the other to look at the 2 firearms and guns that were recovered. The motive appeared to be connected to the shooter's belief that he was suffering from CTE and he was an ex-NFL player. Those items just don't pan out. He never played for the NFL. And so we're still unraveling this terrible shooting that took place in the city.
Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch in a video said a suicide note found in Tamura possession at the scene spoke to a possible motive in the shooting. Jessica added that among the dead were a police officer, a security guard, and 2 people who worked at companies in the building, noting that an NFL employee was badly wounded but survived. Tsunami waves has hit parts of Russia and Japan after a massive earthquake off the Russian coast, with alerts issued for dozens of other countries, including the United States and the Philippines. Potentially hazardous waves were expected in parts of the US, much of coastal Latin American, and numerous Asian and Pacific islands, said today. The regional minister for emergency situations, Sergei Lebedev, said waves up to 4 meters high have already struck Russia's far eastern Kamchatka region following the 8.8 magnitude quake, one of the largest on record. Video posted on Russian social media showed buildings in the town submerged by water as authorities declared a state of emergency throughout the North Kuril districts. Australia says it will add YouTube to sites covered by its world-first ban on social media for teenagers, reversing an earlier decision to exempt the Alphabet-owned video-sharing site and potentially setting up a legal challenge. The decision came after the internet regulator urged the government last month to overturn the YouTube carve-out, citing a survey that found 37% of minors reported harmful content on the site, the worst showing for a social media platform. Australia Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in a statement stressed that Australian children were being negatively affected by online platforms and reminding social media of their social responsibility.
Should lose a child at that age. We know that social media is doing social harm, and my government and this parliament is prepared to take action to protect young Australians. That's why today we're pleased to announce that our government is tabling rules that specify which types of online services will be captured in our world-leading laws. Importantly, following advice from the E-Safety Commissioner, young people under the age of 16 will not be able to have accounts on YouTube. They will also not be able to have accounts on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, X, amongst other platforms.
The decision broadens the ban set to take effect in December. YouTube says it is used by nearly 3/4 of Australians aged 13 to 15 and should not be classified as social media because its main activity is hosting videos. And on business, President Donald Trump said that India may be hit with a tariff rate of 20% to 25%, while cautioning that the final levy still had not been finalized as the nations negotiate a trade deal ahead of August 1 deadline. Speaking aboard Air Force One as he returned to Washington from a 5-day visit to Scotland, Trump said India has been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country.
They're my friends, and he's my friend. And, they ended the war with Pakistan at my request, and that was great. And Pakistan did also. India's been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country. You know that, right? Over the years. But now I'm in charge, and you just can't do that.
Recall Trump announced higher levies in April before pausing those tariffs at a reduced 10% rate to allow time for negotiations. Despite an extended deadline, Trump has only secured a handful of deals. Earlier, U.S. Trade Representative Jamima Fateye said that the U.S. needed more time for talks with India to gauge the country's willingness to open its markets more to American exports. On sports, Swedish striker Victor Gyökeres has already made history at Arsenal, breaking the club's all-time record for shirt sales following his €63.5 million move from Sporting CP last week. Gyökeres was unveiled to a raucous reception in Singapore ahead of Arsenal's friendly against Newcastle and has trained with the squad ahead of tomorrow's showdown with Spurs in Hong Kong. According to internal club figures and early retail tracking, its shirt sales are the highest in modern Arsenal history, as demand for Gyökeres number 14 shirts has surpassed all recent records, even those set by Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard. To mark the transfer, Arsenal offered fans free shirts printing for Gyökeres' name, a gesture that sparked such rush that the club's official online store briefly clashed. With that sports story, we end this edition of Global Box on Adamimogo 107.7 FM, Olojudo's Palace, Ido Ekiti. Just before we go, the highlights again. Nurses under the umbrella of the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives Federal Health Institution sector have insisted that their planned 7-day warning strike will begin today. Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara has announced he will seek a fourth term leading the West African nation as tension rises over the exclusion of many heavyweight opposition candidates. United States President Donald Trump has suggested that Israel would run a food distribution center in Gaza, a move that critics said would further entrench the Israeli occupation and endanger the safety of aid seekers. That's Global Box from Adamimogo 107.7 FM, Olojudo's Palace, Ido Ekiti. On behalf of the production crew led by Oladoyin Ayebu